I gotta clap, man. I gotta clap. Yo, welcome. Black Cajun Sports Talk is back at it again. And I'm Del Greco Wilson. And today I have my brother on the show, Ashley Howard. Now, while Ashley is hesitant and reluctant to draw attention to it, the fact is that he is already a historic figure in Philadelphia college basketball. Coach Howard is the first and the only African-American Black head coach in the history of Philadelphia's 3 Division I college basketball programs. And I have to say that because it was a time before I called those guys out for not having somebody, and now I got my homie on the phone, so we where we need to be. It is with great pride that I introduce the head coach of the fabled LaSalle Explorer men's basketball program, Mr. Ashley Howard. How you doing, Ashley?
An MC just like an English muffin. Don't worry about a thing because the poop is never bluffing. I catch headaches from the whack, so then I take a buffin' and I max. I wait until the opportune time and then I tax. But should I max? Now they say sinning is for sinners, so I guess I'm not a sinner. Beginners for beginners, so I guess I'm no beginner. This is how I spark it, puts loot in my pocket. When it comes to having pleasure, I get hard as a rocket. MC Grand Poo coming through all the residue. The songs are main classic, dating back to the Bible. My boys are called
I'm good. How is the Mrs. and Journey and Ace and Kai and your sister and your pops? How's everybody doing, man?
Everybody's doing as good as we can right now, man. Little bit of cabin fever, but you know what? We're getting a chance to spend some quality time with each other. Me and my dad, we FaceTime frequently, and we get the chance to connect through technology. And me and the wife and the kids here, we're just hunkered down, just hanging out, man, enjoying each other.
So what are you at the crib? Are you the principal, the guidance counselor, the teacher? What you got, math, social? What's Journey? What you doing, man?
So I'm the PE teacher. I'm physical education, man. So when I get a break from doing my job also, because we're working remotely from the house too. So I still have a lot of things on my plate in terms of keeping up with the team and our alumni and just trying to find different innovative ways to connect with the players while we're quarantined. When we get a little bit of time away from that, then we grab the ball, we go out, we toss the football around. Journey, she likes to ride her bike and hit the wiffle ball, and Ace, he'll just do whatever you ask him to do. He just run around following her and doing his own thing. So in between all that stuff, man, I'm like the PE teacher.
All right, so I'm sure your lesson plan is good, man. You got them running suicides and all that, man. So look, let's get started, man. I have to ask you, has it actually sunk in yet? You're heading the program that gave the world Tom Gola, Larry Cannon, Kenny Durrett, Mike Brooks, Stevie Black, Lionel Simmons. That's pretty heavy stuff, man. My head coach in high school, Jeff and I played for Alonzo Lewis, and he was the second Black guy to play at LaSalle. This is in the mid-1950s. So Jeff and I, we kind of grew up on LaSalle basketball histories. The Explorers have really one of the greatest all-time basketball traditions. And they decided a couple years ago to give you the keys. And I know you're a historian as well as a student of the current game. How often do you think about the responsibility and the role you play as really the caretaker of this wonderful LaSalle basketball tradition?
Well, it's something that I take a great deal of pride in, and we have an unbelievable story to tell at LaSalle in terms of men's basketball. We've had 3 National Players of the Year, national championship, countless
Olympians,
countless pros, guys that had not just like cups of coffee in the NBA, but like long, lofty, successful NBA careers, right? It goes from Tom Gola to Rasul Butler, and now we got young BJ Johnson that's in the NBA now. So that history and that tradition is something that we celebrate. It's something that we have to make sure that people know and understand. And it's something that I take a great deal of pride in. Just growing up in a basketball family, I always, was taught to respect the history and the tradition of the game, right? So, to have the opportunity to work at LaSalle, a program that has such a rich and historic tradition, not only do I like telling the story, but I'm looking forward to adding on to that tradition as well.
Does that drive you? Is that part of what drives you to bring it back to national prominence? Because we all know what LaSalle has been and can be.
Yeah, man. Like, it's one of the reasons why, I really, looked at this opportunity as like a once in a lifetime, can't miss opportunity for myself, because of the tradition, because of the fact that we're in Philly and we're in a great recruiting base. And, if it's been done before, it can be done again. I think everything happens in cycles, right? And especially in Philadelphia, you have Villanova that's having an unbelievable run right now, and they're under great leadership. Temple's had unbelievable runs, and I think Aaron is looking to do something similar to what we're doing at LaSalle. Penn's had great runs, St. Joe's has great runs, and I'm just looking forward to putting LaSalle in a position where we can have our time again.
Look, this past season you finished 500 on the nose. Now, you struggled a little bit in the A-10, but I think overall, anyone looking at it would have to say it was a really solid second season for you guys. How would you categorize your team's performance this past season, and what are some of the strengths you felt that the club exhibited, and what are some of the areas where you want to see some continued growth?
So I think the biggest thing that was that was accomplished this year is that our guys understand like what our identity is, right? And our identity is a team that's going to get after you on the defensive end. Offensively, we want to be disruptive. We want to create turnovers, and then on offense, honestly, we want to play free. I tell our guys all the time, I don't want to run plays. I want you guys to learn how to make plays by playing with each other and playing off of each other, right? And there were times where I felt like we did a great job of that, and there were times where I felt like we struggled, but that was a part of our youth and inexperience also. So the only way you get better is by getting that experience. And the Atlantic 10 was as tough as it's been in a long time. And
where do you place it? Outside of the Power 5, top 2, 3, once you get outside the Power 5?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the A-10 and the AAC and, the West Coast Conference this year, where
Mountain West,
where, Mountain West has San Diego State. West Coast Conference has Gonzaga, St. Mary's. Obviously, we had Dayton this year. The American, Wichita State, Houston. Those programs have been, top 25 caliber programs. Memphis with Penny Hardaway. So, Anthony Grant was the National Coach of the Year. Obi Toppin was National Player of the Year. So, Dayton was on another level. But if you look at the teams that were right below Dayton, the Rhode Islands, the Richmonds, the St. Louis's, they were NCAA tournament teams, right? So, my biggest thing here is just to get our program to the point where we're in that top echelon of the Atlantic 10. And I think once we get to that point, I think then we'll be a NCAA tournament caliber team and a team that's competing for Atlantic 10 and Big 5 championships.
Who were you pleased with? What were some of the strengths? Who had showed some improvement this year for the Explorers?
Well, I was pleased with everybody. Even I know Ed Croswell left us, but I was even pleased with his development as a player as the season went on. I felt like Our guys got better defensively. I thought we fouled less. I thought our fouls were our Achilles heel. I felt like when we played well, we defended with good technique without fouling. A kid like David Beatty really stepped up this year. Scott Spencer led the Atlantic 10 in three-point field goal percentage. Christian Ray, he did an unbelievable job of staying engaged. It's hard for freshmen sometimes when your role changes from being a starter to coming off the bench to maintain the same amount of focus and attention to detail in terms of doing whatever the team needs for you to win. I thought Christian Ray was unbelievable that way for us. Jarrett Kimbrough battled injuries all season. And then towards the end of the year, he was right there, ready to step up when we lost Eddie. And he gave us some unbelievable minutes defensively. And I think he had his best game of the year versus St. Bonaventure. And then our freshman guards, those guys, they got some valuable experience. Did they have some games where they played like freshmen? They did. Mm-hmm. But because they had games where we allowed them to play through mistakes, they also had some games where they played really well and played with some confidence also. So, I felt it was a great mixture of, getting valuable experience for our young guys, and then collectively everybody sort of kind of understanding who we want to be moving forward.
All right, so let's go back. So did that opportunity to be a student coach at your alma mater, did that spark your interest in becoming a D1 head coach?
At the moment, I didn't know I wanted to be a head coach. At the moment, I just knew that I wanted to coach basketball and stay involved with the game, because at that time, I had just finished playing. So, the vision of being a head coach never crossed my mind. It was just have an opportunity to work with young people, be around the game that I love, and just really transfer my passion from playing to, coaching and helping young people.
So you did that for what, 2 years?
Yeah, so I did that for 2 years. My junior and senior year, I had to, I wasn't able to play due to a heart condition. Then Brew and Jeff, those guys encouraged me to stick around with the team, be a volunteer assistant. Little did I know that they just wanted me to be the dude that run the 7-Eleven and get them chips and soda. You know what I'm saying? and do all the grunt work, But at the time, I understood that they were grooming me to be a college coach, and just have an opportunity to sit in on the conversations, the coaches meetings, listen to their thought process in terms of game preparation and recruiting, the type of players that they wanted to bring in, what they were looking for. Those were conversations in an aspect of the business that I had never been exposed to before. So just being a fly on the wall in those situations, it prepared me to be a head coach, because they didn't allow me to say anything. It was always, be seen and not heard. So I did the best job I could of just learning as much as I could and just staying out of their way and just doing what I was told. And then once I got an opportunity to graduate, it was really about just trying to put myself in a position where I might be able to get a job, whether it was Division II or high school. I had no idea that I would, be able to crack into the Division I ranks. But a lot of things in this business is all about timing, and I had timing on my side when I got the opportunity to start my career at LaSalle.
All right, so you walk in, you interview with G, and you interview for an assistant coaching job, or was it ops, video? Was it any of that stuff? What was the gig? So
it was his third assistant spot, and he had the rest of his staff filled. And during this time, there were no video coordinators, there were no grad assistants. Mm-hmm. It was, G had his operations guy, 2 assistants, and he was looking to add an assistant coach who he felt could do a lot of the administrative and operational things, right? So, my first year as an assistant coach, I was checking classes. I was working guys out. I was breaking down film. I wore, multiple hats. It wasn't like now where if you're an assistant coach, your only responsibilities at this level is really recruit, player development, and game preparation. So I got an opportunity to experience a lot of the different nuances of the profession, even in my first couple of years at LaSalle as the third assistant coach, just, with multiple responsibilities.
So how many years were you at LaSalle?
I was at LaSalle for 4 years.
And then the next
4 years, and then
the next opportunity was
then I had a chance to come back to Drexel and work for Brew as his assistant.
Did you still have to get the chips, man, or that was somebody else's responsibility at that point, man?
You know what, man? It all depended. It all depended on who was the closest to him. Because when I got there, it was me and Bobby Jordan and Cleves, and he treated us all like his young buck at that time. So it was like whoever he had in his vision was the young flunky. Yo, go get me whatever I need at that moment.
So,
no, but
how was that though, being back at your alma mater? You knew most of the people in the athletic department. You knew a lot of the kids. Was that an adjustment period for you?
No, for me, it was like coming back home, and the reason why I wanted to go back to Drexel was because I had unfinished business there as a player. You know what I mean? I didn't get a chance to play my 2 years as a junior and senior. And, Drexel at that point had not won the CAA conference. So my thing was, if I can go back there with the experience that I gained at LaSalle as an assistant coach, help Coach Brew in recruiting. I understood his system. I understood what he was looking for, be able to go back, help him develop the guys that he had in the program, which we had some young, talented guys in the program. I felt like I would be able to go there and help, contribute to Drexel winning their first Colonial Championship. And we actually ended up doing that in 2012.
How many years were you at Drexel?
I was there 4 years.
And then you left, but right before you left Brew. I kid you about this sometime. You didn't leave and take all the food out the cabinets, man. You left Damian Lee in there, man. That was a nice little parting gift for you, man. That's a good find.
Yeah, man.
How you get an NBA player to come to Drexel, man?
I mean, to be honest with you, Damian wasn't projected to be an NBA player, but he had NBA work ethic and character, right? So he was like the best kid in the world, and he worked his tail off. So during his year at St. Thomas More, he really elevated his game. Like, he took that opportunity in prep school to become one of the best shooters in the country. Mm-hmm. And in our system, it was really catered towards guys that could really shoot the ball, because we ran a lot of plays to get shooters open. Like Coach Brew had Monty Mack and Phil Galston. We had Chris Fouch at the time. And I looked at Damian. I said, look, he could be like the next guy in this system that could really thrive, right? And Damian didn't disappoint us that way. He was the CAA Rookie of the Year.
Boy, did he thrive. Yes, he did.
Yeah, and I felt like being a part of Coach Brew's system gave him the confidence that he needed to continue to develop as a player. And we all know that he became one of the best players in the CAA. He ended up leaving and going to Louisville, where he was an all ACC player, mm-hmm. and now he's playing for the Golden State Warriors. So he had a great career. I left Drexel feeling like the program was in really good hands.
Yeah, man. A lot of cats, like I said, they run and they take all the groceries with them, man. You left him in good shape. Jeff, I think, left Sammy Givens when he left, man. So y'all, Brew don't play that shit, man. He makes sure y'all leave something.
We ain't going nowhere unless I got something in the cupboard.
Now, along the way,
and the funny thing about that is, man, it was, because when I was an assistant with Brew, and everybody knows, that Brew and Coach Calipari have a great relationship. And I was a young assistant, man. I'm like, yo, Brew, man, you got put that call in for Kyle with me, man. What's up? I'm trying to get down with Kyle. And Brew was like, yo, man, get your Boston players, man. Get your Boston players, and you win, you'll move up in this business. And it was the greatest advice that he gave me at the time as a young assistant, because, I was.
You was hungry, Ash. You was thirsty.
I was hungry.
Yes,
I was
you
hungry,
were,
man. I wanted to prove myself in this business. I wanted to move up the ladder, and I understood that, I had to be the best assistant that I could be for my boss. And Coach Brew reminded me all the time that, yo, you get your Boston players and they win, you'll get what you want. So, I got an opportunity to move on. In 2012 from Drexel, I got an opportunity to work for Chris Mack at Xavier. And for me, that was an opportunity to just take a leap of faith in myself, leaving my comfort zone, being in Philly my whole life, going out to Cincinnati and working in a big time program like Xavier was an unbelievable experience for me also.
And that was a 1-year affair, right?
Yeah, nine months, man, 9 months. But it was a great experience.
You were helpful with them with Christian, right? Samaj?
No, so Samaj was there already. He's from Cincinnati. Okay. So my 1 year that I got out there, Samaj was already committed, and
that was his freshman year, though.
That was his freshman year.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and we developed a good rapport while we were out there. Samaj is a talent. He was a hard worker. Unfortunately, when we got out there, like Des Wells had just had a situation where he had to leave Xavier, and Mark Lyons was supposed to be there that year, and he left and went to Arizona. So, Samaje came in there thinking that he was going to play with these two other great players. Those guys weren't there. So he had to assume more of a role in his freshman year, and he was really good, man. He was one of the best guards to come out of that Xavier program. So
Jay has an opening. I think he tried a guy from DC or something, and it didn't work out. Then he said, you know what? Let me just get what I know. So how'd that work out, man? How'd you end up on that staff up on the main line, man?
So to be honest, like I met with Coach Wright, I think the year before when I was at Drexel. I think he had an opening on the staff, and, he went in another direction. And then when I went out to Xavier, I was there for like 2 months, and then a spot opened up, and I told Coach that I wasn't going to accept it, because I had just went out to Xavier for 2 months, you know what I mean? And I just got settled in. I just got an apartment, just moved in my apartment in Cincinnati after living in a hotel out of a suitcase for a couple of months. So, I made the promise to Chris Mack that I was going to be there, and I stayed at Xavier through that year. But then coincidentally, a spot opened up again at Villanova in the spring, and I ran into Billy Lang on the road. He was an assistant there, and Billy talked to me about the opportunity to come back. And at the time, my grandmother was ill. So in the back of my mind, I was thinking it would probably be best if I could come back home to be close to her. So, the second time around, I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to come back to Villanova and work for Coach Wright. So it was really perfect timing. It was a matter of, me looking at the opportunity and saying like, okay, this opportunity has come around twice now. You can't turn this opportunity down twice. And my grandmother being ill, that really was the incentive for me to come back to Philly and work at Villanova.
You come back. They were definitely top Sweet 16, Elite 18, but your time there, they became a blue blood. During your stay, I mean, you guys just became one of the top 2, 3, 4 programs in the country. I think that's generally, accepted across the board right now. That Nova is right there. Did you see that when you signed on? Did you just feel like you could bring something to help push that program all the way over the top the way you did when you joined the staff?
So my vision when I came back to Villanova, I just had so much respect for Coach Wright that I felt like it was my responsibility to do whatever I could do to help him elevate his program and to be the best coach that he could be. Right. And that was my only thought about it. Like, okay, what do we need to do to get Coach Wright in a conversation with the Krzyzewskis and the Caliparis and the Roy Williams? Because I had the type of respect for him where I felt like he's just as good as these dudes, or better. You know what I mean? What do we need to do to get him in that conversation? Because I knew that if we had that type of success and if Coach Wright was in a position where people were looking at him like that, then all right, then everybody will get what they wanted out of it. It just took me back to my times at Drexel where Brew would say, yo, man, get your ball players, do the best job that you can.
With the job you got.
With the job you have, and good things will happen, right? So never really thought about, Final Fours or national championships. Never thought about any of that stuff. For me, it was all about going into that situation, learning what I needed to do at Villanova to be the best assistant that I could be for Coach Wright, and then just put my head down and getting to work, and letting our work speak for itself. So that's what it was, really.
So along the way, then we can review. You had Bruiser and Jeff, and you had Coach G, you had Chris Mack, and you had Jay Wright, and you finally finished all these apprenticeships, and you get your opportunity to lead your own program. Now, you're the head coach at LaSalle. When you're dealing with your guys on all aspects, maybe you have a disciplinary issue or you're coming up with defensive schemes, offensive schemes. Do you find yourself channeling any of those guys, man? Do you say, damn, I sound just like Brew, or I sound just like Jay right now?
Yeah, when I use my choice words for my teams, sometimes I feel Brew. When I'm trying to calm myself down and be mellow and smooth, I probably sound like Jay. And then when I'm trying to, talk like a composed, offensive mind, I probably talk like Chris Mack. So I'm probably like a combination of all those guys. And, and then just in terms of, my work ethic as a head coach, I try to model Coach G, because one of the things that I learned from Coach G from day one was that he was involved with everything, man. He did everything, every aspect of the program. He was a Division III head coach, a very successful Division III head coach. And he had that mindset where it's like, all right, I'm going to be involved in all areas of the program, whether it's player development, whether it's recruiting, whether it's academics, compliance. Like Coach G was very involved. And, I try to take a little bit of that from all of the guys that I've worked for, but also understanding that now as the head coach, the most important thing I can do is empower my staff and let those guys grow as assistants and learn me and figure out the things that I need from them. So a lot of times that requires me to take a back seat and allow those guys to take the reins so that they can flourish as assistant coaches also.
Now, more than any other local program, you seem to have focused on recruiting Philadelphia and the surrounding areas. Honestly, as I think back over the last 2 years, I can't really think of an elite player that you haven't aggressively pursued. You a goddamn pit bull, Ash. You out there, and you've landed some really good ones, and you've kept some really good ones. Jack Clark, Cheltenham, Clifton Moore, Hatboro, Horsham, Dave Beatty, Carroll by way of St. Benedict's, Christian Ray, Haverford, Darius Ward, Sankofa by way of St. Tommy Moore, Kyle Thompson,
yep.
St. Joe's Prep, Jameer Brickus, Coatesville legend. These are some of the guys that have suited up or will suit up for you. Now, is this emphasis on Philadelphia by design? Have you made an explicit choice to field rosters with a strong Philly flavor?
Absolutely, but it's not just the commitment to Philly. It's like I want our program to have a family atmosphere. Like I want to create an environment where, you know, we have families that come to the game, families that appreciate each other, appreciate, you know, being a part of something bigger than themselves. You know, you got a kid like Jameer Brickus. He's going to come with a huge following from Coatesville.
It's going to be 300-400 of them. Absolutely.
People can come and support him, right?
Yeah.
Darius Ward, you know, he lives 2 minutes away from LaSalle. His family can be there. I feel like when kids have their families around and they have that support system, they'll be able to withstand going through some difficult times. And, you know, in today's climate of college basketball where everybody's leaving, you know, it's important that these kids have that family connection and support, right? So, you know, I look at it, the opportunity to recruit locally is an opportunity to create a family environment so that the kids that come to LaSalle, they look at it and say like, yo, man, that's like being at home, literally, right? They're going to get the tough love. They're going to get the education. They're going to get the support. And then they're going to get the basketball experience that they desire. And then the other thing is, you know, when you have players that are from a certain area, there's a connection that they all have amongst each other. And I think that's what's always made LaSalle really good. You know, when you look back at our Sweet 16 team, we had multiple local guys on that roster that went to the Sweet 16. If you look back to, you know, the great teams when
Lionel, Randy, Doug.
Yeah. Jack Hurd, you know, Rasul, Donnie, Victor Thomas, you know, and it goes on and on and on. LaSalle's always had a heavy local presence. But the one thing that we think about in recruiting is not just Philly. Like our breadbasket kind of expands down to the DMV, New York, New Jersey. So, you know, I think we have a really good mix of local Philly talent and, you know, kids from the DMV also with Ayende Akeem, Sharif Kenny, Anwar Gill, Tegra Ize. You know, I think we have a very good balance of, you know, Philly kids, DMV kids, two areas that are very rich in grassroots basketball. I think we have the relationships there that'll allow us to continue to do well in those areas. And, you know, now it's just a matter of our team coming together, gelling, developing, and you know, just, you know, trying to take this program that has unbelievable history and tradition to the next level moving forward.
So, you know, Baltimore, DC, really gritty, tough cities, a lot like Philly. What is it that kids that come from Philly, the DMV, Newark, New Jersey, again, you know, row house cities, you know, we ain't got townhouses, we got row houses. What is it that these row house kids bring to the table that you feel will help LaSalle get to the top of the A10?
Well, I think it's just that I don't care attitude, right? Not really caring about who you're playing against, not really caring about the name on the jersey of the other team, just having that relentless mindset that we're going to go after you. You know what I'm saying? We don't care, you know how big your arena is. We don't care, you know, if you flew in on a private jet or if you rode in on a cheese bus. You know what I'm saying? We coming after you, you know, and you know our program isn't for everybody. You know, we recruit we're gonna recruit everybody aggressively, but then you realize in the process some kids, they're not for us, right? Mm-hmm. Some kids that are looking for the bells and whistles, if that's what means the most to you, then this probably isn't going to be the spot for you right now. But, you know, the thing that we're really trying to put an emphasis on are, you know, creating kids with that underdog mentality that want to go out there and they want to compete and they want to play at the highest level, but they also want to go after those guys at the highest level. and that's what we're looking for.
Look, I talk to a lot of people, and I know that the local guys, the AAU guys and the high school guys, they really are excited about LaSalle basketball, and they love and they respect you, right? Why do you think that is? Why have these guys really embraced you? Is it because you like the same age, you played with these guys, you came up through the ranks with them, or is it you kind of young, Donnie's kind of young, you guys can just relate to what these guys are going through? Why have they been so, I think, welcoming to LaSalle basketball since you assumed the reins?
Well, I'm Philly, man, all the way through. I tell the story. I'm from Philly. You get a lot of dudes, they West Philly guys, North Philly guys,
South Philly.
South Philly guy. Like I'm from all over the city, man. I live uptown, West Philly, North Philly, Delaware County. I lived everywhere because I bounced around a lot as a kid. So, I got a lot of relationships that just came organically, just playing ball, being in the city. But the one thing that I've never done was I've never changed. You know what I'm saying? Like, regardless of whether or not I was at Drexel or Villanova, I always had time for people who other people necessarily didn't really know or care to know or get to develop the relationships with. I had those relationships organically, and I never changed. You know what I mean? And it's something that I take a great deal of pride in, because I want to be, a guy that's relatable. As a head coach, there's times where you gotta, be a certain way. But at the same time, my upbringing and my journey has really shaped me into the man that I am today. And, I want to share that, because there are a lot of young people that come from Philadelphia that are looking to, get into the coaching ranks, or, young guys that I encounter all the time that want to be great players. And I've got experience, and I've got a story to share with them.
So it's just not in you to big time those guys. It's just not a part of you.
No, no, it's not. That's just not the cloth I'm cut from. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, let's talk about breaking in. Jerome Allen and Aaron McKee, both Big Five Hall of Famers, had incredible, fantastic levels of success during their playing days at Penn and Temple, respectively. Both went on to enjoy long and fruitful professional basketball careers. Their respective hirings at their alma maters were almost kind of expected. Many people thought Jameer had a real shot at St. Joe's because he was on that same path. Yeah. You don't have that legacy. You could ball, Ash. You could ball. I ain't knocking it. But you wasn't Jerome.
I wasn't them dudes.
So you had to lean on your coaching track record, your ability to recruit and develop, and the relationships, as you keep, I think, referring to get an opportunity to lead a program. Talk about the differences in those two tracks to getting a job. Because, we had a conversation, a larger group recently, and, it was a real, I think, a diametrically opposed two trains of thoughts that came about. So just share what you did as a prospective coach to put yourself in that position. Some of the things you consciously did because you knew you wasn't going to just walk in and the AD knew who you was because you played 15 years in the league.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is when you are in a position to be a head coach, you've done something extraordinary. You know what I'm saying? So, Jerome, Aaron, Jameer, those dudes were extraordinary players, some of the greatest players to ever come out of our city to play in the Big Five, great ambassadors of their university. So the opportunities that Aaron and Jerome got, they deserved. Mm-hmm. Jameer was probably deserving of an opportunity as well. And, he probably will get his shot eventually, mm-hmm. and rightfully so. So now, you talk about the name recognition, like those guys have it because they were great players. And not only that, they're great people that the people at those institutions respected at a high level. So now, as a guy like myself who's coming up the ranks, the first thing is like you gotta go an extended period of time where you maintain clean cleats, right? You can't have any issues off the court. You can't break any NCAA rules. You can't be involved in any nonsense that will be a detriment to your character, right? And then you have to win at a high level, right? So like we talked about, you got to put your head down. Whatever job you have, you got to treat that job like it's gold, right? Like you can't be an assistant coach at a low Division I program and treat it like it's a low Division I program. If you're an assistant coach at Wagner, you got to treat that job like you work at Villanova. You know what I'm saying? With that same type of pride, that same type of work ethic, and the same approach, right? And then as you move up the ladder, you get to a certain level where you experience a element of success. Then you may be able to think about being an assistant coach at a high major spot, or maybe if you're at a mid-major level, you may be able to think about positioning yourself if your boss leaves to the greener pastures to maybe take over that program. But at the end of the day, man, it's really all about being immersed in the job that you have and just trying to do the best job that you can. I was fortunate enough where, I was able to climb the ladder, right? And I never thought about being a head coach until like we won the first national championship at Villanova. I was still just focused on doing whatever I had to do in order to, make sure that our program was where we needed it to be. You win that first national championship, recruiting gets a little bit harder now because the guys that you're recruiting, you're not sneaking up on North Carolina and duking them dudes no more, right? So now you gotta win those recruiting battles, and it's hard, right? It's hard to climb the ladder, and as an African American coach, it's even harder sometimes because we may not necessarily get those opportunities.
Pac-12 has none.
Right.
Big Ten had none until they hired Juwan. I mean, this is real. So once you started to see yourself, you look in the mirror and you're like, yo, that's a head coach right there. In the waiting, you're a sharp guy, Ash, and this is stuff that you and I have talked about, and some of it very recently. I know you sharp enough to understand that the actual hiring process itself, where they identify candidates, where they vet the candidates, where they interview the candidates, that there's this phenomenon of search firms that have come into the play. And at really pretty much every high major opportunity, there's going to be some degree of search firm involvement, either just gathering the pool together, and sometimes they stay all the way through to the end, of the actual interviewing and all of that. So knowing that this process exists out there, how did you adjust your approach? Did you have to engage these search firms even once you decided this is what I wanted to do?
So I got invited to a conference called Villa 7, and Villa 7 was like 40 up and coming assistant coaches that people identified that they thought could be head coaches. And at this, conference, they brought in people that work with search firms. They brought in athletic directors. We did mock interviews and so forth and so on. And I didn't really feel like I got an opportunity to engage with the people from the search firms like I really wanted. So when I left the event, I said, I'm going to make it a point to reach out to the search firm and just go introduce myself so that, they knew who I was, right? So, we were in Atlanta for an AAU event. I flew in early that morning. I think the game started at like 5 o'clock, checked into my hotel, and I made it a point to go to the search firm and just introduce myself. Gentleman gave me 15
Were they receptive? They were receptive?
Yeah, gave me 15 minutes of his time. Sat down. I met with another one of his assistants. And, we just engaged in just real, leisure conversation. talked a little bit about myself, about my journey, obviously in-town recruiting, and then I kept it moving. And then after that, I just, kept in contact. It's relationships, right? Our business is a relationship business. And when you're a guy that's coming up the ladder, like you were talking about earlier, Del, the relationships that I have with people where they know who I am, they know that, I've paid my dues. I came up through the ranks. Now I'm in a position where, you got to begin to foster other relationships as well. And the relationships with the people on campus are important, your own administration, and then the relationships that you create outside of your campus with search firms and people that are in the industry are also important. So at the time, I didn't have an agent. So I just took it upon myself to go introduce myself. There are some people now in the business that, they hire agents, and their agent will be the person that's sort of kind of, putting you out there to the search firms and so forth and so on. But, there's different ways where you can take the initiative on your own to, facilitate those relationships as well. And that was one of the things that I did.
So it's like the old saying, man, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You can't be an introvert and expect them to just come find you as an assistant coach in the era of search firms. Like, they're going to go with who they know, right? Who they're comfortable with.
Yep, absolutely. But at the same time, it's like you can go and introduce yourself, but now you gotta be able to back it up to
have some substance
with your production as an assistant coach also.
Got it. Look, let's change gears. Let's talk about this proposed transfer rule. It's pretty clear something's coming down the pike. Now, over the past decade or so, LaSalle has made really effective use of the portal to identify talented A-10 level players. With the kids becoming immediately eligible either this year or next, I think at the latest it'll be next year, will that significantly change the way you approach your high school recruiting? In other words, will you prioritize the older, proven college players over the high school kids, or will you continue to pursue the really good high school kids and try to balance them with a transfer here or there?
So for us, I think we're gonna keep doing our deal, right? We're gonna keep aggressively recruiting these high school kids. We're gonna maintain an emphasis on player development, and then we'll just see how things transpire. Like, the one thing I know is that the high major schools, they're probably going to prey on mid majors that have talented players that they feel like can come and plug and play and help their programs right away. That's something that we can't necessarily control, right? The only thing that we can control is doing our job. So any kid that comes to LaSalle, they know that they're going to play for a coach that's going to love them, that's going to develop them, and be a part of a program that's building. So, I don't think it's wise for us to completely change our approach. Right now, I think we have a talented young squad that we're looking forward to going to war with, and we just got to stay focused on being who we are. We can't necessarily just reinvent our own will until we actually establish ourselves and get this program moving in the right direction.
How much do you think that dynamic will change? Because you pointed out that the big boys, if they see a kid come in and just explode in the A-10, you make all rookie in the A-10, you average 14, 15 points a game, or 8, 9 rebounds a game, or 6 or 7 assists. I mean, at your level, that's going to be really attractive to, some of the middle of the pack or even some of the top, BCS schools. Do you think we'll just see a lot more fluidity? I mean, we already see 700, 800, 900 kids transferring anyway. Is the number going to get higher, Ash?
I don't know if it could get any higher, but it just may. The one thing that I'll say is I think a lot of these kids get gassed up sometimes, feeling as though they have to go to that level in order to make it to the NBA, right? And when in reality, you know, there aren't many fifth-year transfers that make it to the NBA.
Yeah.
There aren't many kids who are transferring, period, that are making it to the NBA.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you can't be successful in your current situation, then, you know, just focus on being the best player that you can be. Too many kids think that they can change their situation, and that's going to change, you know, who they are in respect to, you know, what the NBA is looking for. If you're good enough, the NBA is going to come find you. Last time I checked, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, CJ McConnell, Paul George,
Low to mid D1.
all these guys played low to mid D1. So, you know, I think the misconception is that you have to play at that level in order to make it to the league. That's not the case. You know, if these guys stay disciplined and focused on becoming the best players that they can be, helping their teams win, then, you know, I think, you know, a lot of kids will realize that, you know, they could achieve, you know, the same things at a mid-major that they do going to a high major school.
Yo, the NCAA seems to really be thirsty for some major rule changes. Your situation is really going to change with that transfer rule. This year, you know, we don't even have SAT, ACTs in play at all. And then we have Jalen Green and Isaiah Todd passing on Auburn and Michigan, respectively. Jalen Green, I know for sure, is taking over $500,000 to train and play in the what they call the G League Professional Pathways program. Do you think that this program is just an inevitable response by the NBA to watching Melo Ball, R.J. Hampton, and all these other kids go over to Australia and Europe and play for a bunch of money, and they just want to keep them here? And what do you think are the pros and cons of this type of program for the top, you know, 5, 10, 20 prospects every year?
So I do think that the NBA wants to keep our local talent here, right? And I think the G League is a great opportunity for these players to develop, you know, be under the tutelage of NBA coaches, and then prepare themselves for that next transition, right? I think the biggest thing before was whether or not the money was worth it for those guys to go.
Yeah, the 500 changes things.
Yeah, 500,000 definitely changes the conversation for those guys, because now you're going and you're making something significant, right? You're not just going overseas, you know, to because they're paying you more money. And I think a lot of times the transition from G League to the NBA is easier than, you know, some kids will go overseas and it's a completely different game over there.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids can't handle that.
And you're 18 and them dudes is 32 and you don't speak the language, and
exactly.
Your mom ain't there, your girl ain't there.
Exactly. So, I mean, the NBA has created this whole deal with the talented top 5 players having to make the decision to go to college or find an alternative, because the NBA isn't allowing them. So now I think this is a great segue to help that transition for these guys until the NBA just says, listen, we're going to take them, right? But the way it'll affect our game is, to be honest, they'll still be the next tier of great players, you know, and it'll just be more of an emphasis on player development across the board. You know, you won't get, you know, the Zion Williamsons and these guys that, you know, they're going to college really because they have to, you know what I'm saying?
Derrick Rose, John Wall.
Like, you know, those guys are NBA players just playing a year of college just because they have to, right? You know, I believe firmly that, you know, college basketball should be guys that want to be a part of a campus community, that want to, you know, have that college experience, that really want to go to school. I think that's a huge part of it. And some kids, they're not necessarily wired that way. I don't necessarily feel like they should be forced to go to college if that's not what they want to do. In other sports, young people that are talented enough to be professionals. They're not forced to go to college. They can go and play tennis and golf professionally at an early age and start their careers. So I think this is a way for the talented young basketball players to start their careers, be under the umbrella of the NBA, get that training, get that mentorship, and then prepare those guys for the next level.
All right. Look, the NCAA is also, it seems pretty clear, they're going to allow these kids to be compensated for their likeness and image. And let's just take some hypotheticals. Suppose the Haverford School, they have a lot of financial planners and guys like that around in that community. Suppose one of those guys wants to say, hey, Christian Ray, I want to put you on my brochure or my marketing materials. And Jig has a huge following in Coatesville, so it's a car dealer or somebody. You want to take care of Jig, or Jack Clark in Cheltenham. These guys are going to have some value, especially as your team gets better and starts winning and really competing for NCAAs and things like that. Do you think that these guys, do you think it's a good thing that the NCAA will allow such arrangements? And if some of your kids can go out and make $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on the side, will that disrupt or change the dynamics of your locker room if, the guys in the, say, the 8 through 13 spot don't have the same opportunities?
I definitely think it could potentially change the dynamic of the locker room, but I feel like it's fair game. I feel like any other kid who is 18 years old has the opportunity to come up with their own business strategies and make money. There are a lot of kids now that opt not to go to college just to, start their own career in real estate.
Especially the tech kids, if you can write code or develop an app, nobody stops you.
Nobody's stopping you, right? So I just feel like, it's a great thing. And obviously we'll just have to educate ourselves, educate our players, so that they're making wise decisions. So they're not, dealing with people that are exploiting them and taking advantage of them. I think that's the biggest thing. You'll have certain people, because this is a new thing, that may want to just attach themselves to these kids, when at the end of the day, when you're doing those things, it's really pulling you away from what's most important at the time. And that's, becoming the best player you can be, maintaining, academically, making sure that, you surround your players around the right people that have their best interests at heart, that are actually helping them and not just exploiting them for a couple of dollars. I think that's the most important thing. But I do believe that there's unbelievable opportunity there. I think that kids deserve to be able to earn money, regardless of whether or not you're a student athlete or not. Because in a lot of instances, these student athletes are generating a lot of revenue for these institutions and for the NCAA.
All right, last thing then. We're going to have a lot of parents, a lot of grandparents, the AAU guys, the high school guys. This is the real audience. A few of the kids tune in as well. What do you want to say about what you're building at LaSalle, your program, your culture, your identity that you're trying to establish up there? Talk to them. Why should LaSalle be the choice?
Well, LaSalle should be the choice because, it's a rich basketball tradition. We have a great coaching staff of guys that have experience not only in developing players, but developing a winning program. And I think we're well on our way to doing that. The campus community is thriving, better than it ever has. Our president, Dr. Colleen Hanich, has done an unbelievable job of taking LaSalle to new heights. We're instituting new programs. LaSalle is based off of the culture of educating those who are less fortunate. So it's a campus community that is very connected to the students. It's a very inclusive university where everybody's going to know who you are. The support that you'll get from the faculty and staff is going to be almost like a family member looking after you, right? And that's the truth. You know, when I got to LaSalle as an assistant coach, I was a student at Drexel. I really didn't know much about LaSalle. And then once I got there, I realized, you know, how special the place was because of the connection amongst the faculty, the regular students, the student athletes, the connection that they have to each other. So it's a family environment. It's an opportunity for you to get a great education in a small faith-based setting, and then to have the chance to play for, you know, a coach that's going to love you. I tell our guys, it's not a 4-year deal; it's a 40-year commitment. Mm-hmm. And we're doing everything within our means to make sure that we're creating opportunities for our young people so that they can be successful while they're at LaSalle and for 30, 40 years to come after they graduate. That's the most important thing for us. So, you know, I'm excited about what we're doing. I think that we're well on our way to doing some great things at LaSalle. And, you know, I look forward to what the future holds.
Well, look, brother, soon as Mother Nature allows us back outside, man, I look forward to getting up with you, man, grabbing a drink, something to eat, talking some more. Appreciate you, Ash.
Thanks for having me, Del. Appreciate it, man. All right, man.
Some rappers stink like Engelbert Humperdinck. Better yet, they cap it. I got a bad habit similar to the girl, or she's gotta have it. I think with the brain, and I wish behind a zipper. I'm living kinda good, similar to Jack Tripper. A landlord named Ripper did a show at the Cobra. When I'm finished with this, I'll be paid like Oprah. So if honey wants to act fly, I'll just play like Guy, and I'll say see you later. Here comes the man, and you find none greater. A program to slam with the summer, spring, or fall. Before I do a show, I get some chicks out the mall. Then I get my gear, and I give Trevor a call, cause he works in a barber shop right behind the mall. Other rappers try to rhyme me, but you know they got bid. To put it blunt, honey, I swoop the kids. So boogers back off, breaking off, here comes the regulator. Bet you that you find none greater. So Alamo, tell me what's he gonna do?